All right, here is the video for notes 3-3, equations of circles. So on page 45, I want you to write this down, equations of circles. So the equation of a circle with center HK and radius R is x minus h squared plus y minus k squared equals r squared. So we have our center, which is going to be plugged into h and k. And then we're given our radius, which is going to be plugged in for r. And our final equation is going to look like this, but there's going to be a number here, here, and here. So remember, when you're writing equations of things, whether they're lines or circles, you should always have an x and a y, and the rest of the stuff is going to be numbers. All right, so let's look and see how to actually apply this. So looking at example number 1, it says write the equation of a circle with center 3, 5, and radius 4. So remember that the equation of a circle is x minus h squared plus y minus k squared is equal to r squared. Well, we're given our h and our k, which is the center. So h we're going to plug in for h, k we're going to plug in for k, and r we're going to plug in for r. So plugging those numbers in, we end up with x minus 3 squared plus y minus 5 squared is equal to 4 squared, which is going to simplify to 16. So our final answer, x minus 3 squared, y minus 5 squared is equal to 16. All right, so second example here, again, we have our h, we have our k, and we have our r. So plugging that into the equation of a circle, we have x minus negative 5 squared plus y minus 9 squared is equal to 2.5 squared. So we need to simplify. If you see a double sign, you should simplify that. So x minus negative 5 becomes x plus 5. Y minus 9 stays y minus 9. And then 2.5 squared, 6.25. Okay, so now we should be able to write the equation of a circle given a graph. Well, all we need to do in order to write the equation of a circle is we need a center and a radius. Well, looking at our graph, we can get the center. So our center is going to be negative 1, 2, 3, 4, 5. So negative 5. And then we're going to go up 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6. And our radius, we're going to count the radius by going from the center, 1, 2, 3. So our radius is 3. So using our equation of the circle, so we have a little shortcut here. Notice that when we plug in our center, the signs switch. That's because of this negative. X minus negative 5 becomes plus 5. Y minus 9, this positive 9 becomes a negative 9 because we're subtracting it. So we can use that little shortcut to write the equation a little faster. So it's going to be x plus 5 because of sign switch, y minus 6, and then remember that we're going to square this, so r squared is equal to 9. So that's going to be plugged in here. All right, same one here. We're going to write our center, and we're going to write our radius. So our center is going to be 1, negative 2. And our radius is going to be 1, 2, 3, 4, 5. So x minus 1, y plus 2, and then r squared. 5 squared is 25, so that's going to be 25. Okay. I'm going to skip to number 7 and number 8 just because these are a little easier than 5 and 6. So now it's telling us to graph a circle. So in order to graph a circle, we need the center and the radius. So now we're kind of working backwards. We're given the equation, and we want the center. Remember the center, this is h and this is k, but it's going to be the opposite sign. So x minus 3, that means h is a positive 3. Y plus 2, that means k is a negative 2. And remember that this number represents r squared. So if r squared is equal to 9, we just have to take the square root to get the radius. So the radius is going to be 3. So to graph this, we're going to put a dot at 3, -2. Okay, and the easiest way to graph this using the radius, so I'm just going to go over 3. I'm going to go down 3. I'm going to go to the left 3, and I'm going to go up 3. Oops, that's too much. Up 3 should be right here, and then from there we can kind of connect it into a circle, roughly. All right, same thing with number 8. Our center, this is h and k, but opposite signs. So -3 and +1. And then r squared is equal to 16, which means our radius is just going to be 4 because we take the square root. So -3, 1, and our radius is 4. So I'm going to go up 4, to the right 4, down 4, and to the left 4. Close enough. All right, so now let's look at number 5. So number 5, we're writing the equation of a circle, but we're given a center and a point. So here's what I know my equation is going to look like. Using the center, I know it's going to be x plus 9 squared, y plus 4 squared is equal to r squared. So we don't have the radius here. What we're given instead is we're given this point, -12, 1, which is really just an x and a y. So what we can do is we can actually plug these numbers in for x and y and solve for r squared. Okay, so x is going to be -12, so -12 plus 9, and then 1 plus 4 is equal to r squared. So from here, we can put this in our calculator. Well, let's do -12 plus 9, that's -3, and 1 plus 4 is 5. -3 times -3 is a +9. 5 times 5 is 25. So this means r squared is going to be equal to 34. So at this point, we can basically stop because we know that in our equation, we're going to have to square the radius to get r. So there's really no point in taking the square root and then square it again because that's basically just doing the same thing over and over again. So what we can do is we could just take this number and plug it in here, and now we have our equation of our circle. So it's going to be x plus 9 squared plus y plus 4 squared is equal to 34. Okay, so there's another way we could do this. We know that the distance between a center and any point on the circle is just the radius. So really, to solve for the radius, we can just use Pythagorean Theorem to solve for the radius. Remember that the way that I taught you, you can use Pythagorean Theorem when you're given coordinates is we can use stack and count. And then we can plug that into Pythagorean Theorem. A squared plus b squared is equal to c squared. In this case, we're solving for the radius, so that can give us r squared. So the distance between 15 and 14 is just 1. The distance between -7 and -8 is also just 1. So plugging that in here, 1 squared plus 1 squared, we end up with 1 plus 1 is equal to r squared. And just like before, it basically takes us to this step here. 1 plus 1 is 2. So now we have our equation of our circle. So using the center, it's x minus 15 squared plus y plus 7 squared is equal to r squared, which we just found out is 2. So these ones you have to solve for the radius or r squared and plug it into the formula, making sure that you're using the center as your for h and k instead of the point. All right, so a couple homework problems here. So starting with this first one, we're just writing the equation of a circle. So in this case, we know it's x minus h, so x minus 9 squared, y plus 11 squared because the signs switch. And then we're squaring this. So r squared is going to be the square root of 2 squared. Remember, these just cancel out. This ends up with just being 2. All right, number 4, determine the center and the radius. So the easiest way to determine the center is you can kind of draw some lines here, diameters. So boom, there's a diameter, and there's a diameter. So that kind of gives us our center. So the center of our circle is 0, -1. And then for the radius, we're just going to count 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6. So now we can write the equation of our circle. Okay, which is going to be x minus 0 squared, y plus 1 squared is equal to 6 squared. So simplifying this, x minus 0 is just x, so this is really just x squared, and then we have y plus 1, and 6 squared is 36. Okay, so number 5, we're going to write or identify the center and radius, and then we're going to sketch the graph. So using our equation here, center is h and k, so h is 0. K is going to be -1, remember the sign switch. And if this is r squared, that means the radius, we're just going to take the square root. So the square root of 9 is equal to 3. All right, so now we can graph it. So 0, -1, and then a radius of 3. And now we have our graph. All right, lastly, writing the equation of circle given a center and a point. So first I'm just going to write out what my equation is going to look like. So x minus 6, y plus 15 is equal to r squared. And now we're going to take our h and our k, and I'm going to plug that in for x. So I'm just going to show it this way, and I'm going to plug that in for y. So we're going to get 6 minus 6 squared, and -18 plus 15 squared. That's going to give us r squared. Well, 6 minus 6 is 0. -18 plus 15 is -3. This is 0 plus -3 squared is 9. And now that I have that, we actually don't need to figure out what the radius is because we're going to have to square it again anyways. We can just plug that directly into our formula. So our final answer is going to be x minus 6 squared, y plus 15 squared is equal to 9.